It's not just in the details that the Focus stands out from the crowd, not just in the strikingly styled headlamp or the rather oddly styled rear windows, or even the triangular side repeater. It's the whole car, and it was undeniably quite a bold move on the part of Ford to introduce something so striking to replace its ubiquitous Escort. And all a very far cry, you might think, from the original Escort when it first arrived on the scene decades ago. At first, it was good, very good. The Mark I Escort was light, durable, rugged, and with those Coca-Cola bottle good looks, really very attractive. It was also reasonably priced and subsequently very, very popular. Then came the Mark II, a little more boxy, perhaps a little more modern, but probably not as good looking, and it didn't meet with an immediately positive response. Then came Mark III, another change, and gradually through the next marks and generations, the Escort was watered down until the disastrous Mark IV. Probably the only thing that could keep this car selling was the little blue oval on the radiator grille and the confidence that that instilled in the car buyer. And so they gave us this, the Focus, with its unique form that integrates straight lines and curves, pretty much unlike anything else on the road before it. Now those looks may be a bit love it or hate it, but whether you do love it or hate it, there is no denying that the Ford Focus is a very good car, for a lot of reasons. For a start, there's the interior where that mix of curves and straight lines has been carried through, and we get this dashboard, which is, well, striking again. To me, it looks rather as though somebody has taken all the required parts, the dials, the vents, the switches, and thrown them violently at the dash, and they've exploded out from behind the steering wheel. Fortunately though, they've all landed in pretty much the right places and everything comes to hand as and when you need it. And the plastics used seem to be of pretty decent quality. It doesn't feel like budget, low-rent, cheap car by any means. My only complaint, well, for a modern car in an era when we're supposed to be light and bright, it does feel rather gloomy in here. And then there's the drive, which is very good, and that's thanks largely to the multi-link rear suspension. It has the equivalent of giving it independent rear suspension, and the reason that's good is it means the suspension itself can get on with doing what it's supposed to do, which is keep the tyres in contact with the road for as long as possible, simply because each wheel is independent and doesn't interfere with the next if it's bumped or jolted. The result is a great drive. It feels extremely predictable, very much planted on the road. And that drive is helped again by the driving position, which is, again, very, very good. Even the size of the wheel, it feels grippable and malleable and about the right sort of dimension. And in the right place, there's enough visibility from here. I'm comfortable, I'm in control and on top of the car. As a place to be, it's not at all bad. There's the usual amount of hatchback type space. If you need a bit more and of a different kind, well, there is a saloon version that's being made, though whether or not you can forgive its, shall we say, quirky looks, is up for debate. If you need more space than that, then there is an estate version, a proper load lugger, which again is probably not as interesting to look at as the hatch, maybe a bit more traditionally styled. In common with a lot of manufacturers, Ford were hoping to exploit the platform of their medium hatch contender by making even another version, this time a small MPV. Unfortunately, they got caught up in the debate as to whether to have 5 or 7 seats, and we've ended up with, well, none, because they haven't made it at all. We won't see that for another few years. As for engines, well, if you're after a thumping great V8 job, you're buying the wrong kind of car. If you want something that does the job, it's economical and ranges from a good frugal diesel to the really quite sporty Z-Tech, then you're in the right kind of place. Of course, as soon as you come to a nice twisty A-road, you can start to enjoy that clever rear suspension. If you've got one of the Z-Tech engines, the whole thing feels quite surprisingly sporty. Okay, so it was pretty brave of Ford to replace that most bog standard of cars, the Escort, with something as radical as the Focus. Whether or not, though, the Focus will go on to see as many generations and incarnations as the Escort remains to be seen. Will there be another Focus? Watch this space. In the meantime, well, I think I'll stick to my Escort replacements, driven the same way as the original ones, by the wheels at the back, if you see what I mean.
There's an old saying, small is beautiful, and as far as car buyers are concerned, that certainly seems to be the case. Small car sales now account for around 25% of all vehicles sold in Britain. That's over 500,000 cars, and Toyota want to grab a share of that action with this. the Yaris 1.3 SR. The European Car of the Year has been transformed with the arrival of a 1.3-litre 16-valve engine that packs a real punch and has transformed the Yaris into a little pocket rocket. And it isn't just a new engine that sets the SR apart. There have been subtle changes to the styling. The Yaris still towers above its rivals on the road, but now has a rear roof spoiler and is colour-coded to match the owner's choice from the 5 colours available. The suspension has been lowered to give it a more dynamic and aggressive stance, and a titanium effect grille helps to distinguish the SR from the other Yaris models. The whole look is finished off with 15-inch alloy wheels that come fitted as standard with Pirelli low-profile tyres, all very sporty. Once inside, you'll realise why so many comparisons have been made between the Yaris and the TARDIS. It's nice and compact on the outside, but it's absolutely huge inside. There's plenty of room for 4 adults, and there's even a decent amount of headroom. And you get a very sensible split folding rear seat. It's all very practical. Here in the front, you'll find that the Yaris lacks the bland, boring interior that we normally associate with Japanese cars. Okay, it is grey, but it's very well designed and at least it looks interesting. This sort of instrument panel in the middle is a fantastic idea. Everything is well laid out and it's very solid. And the little pod up here that houses the digital display, well, it might not be to everybody's taste, but I like it. The only thing to bear in mind is it can be a bit of a pain to read on a bright sunny day. But as I live in Manchester, that's not going to be a problem for me now, is it? The new 1.3 engine has many similarities to the 1-litre unit, which was recently judged the International Engine of the Year. The main shared feature between that engine and this 1.3 is the use of Toyota's VVTi technology. This intelligent variable valve timing system is usually associated with larger luxury or sports cars, and it's used to great effect in the Yaris. In fact, once you get behind the wheel, it's a surprise just how quick the 1.3 engine really does feel. It may only produce 86 brake horsepower, but it is very punchy, particularly when you get it up into the mid-range. Zipping around town in it is no problem at all, not least because you've got plenty of power to hand when you want it, but also because of the fact that the steering is very responsive and light, and it's a very easy car to manoeuvre. Visibility is good, add to that a slick 5-speed gearbox, and you've got a perfect little city car. Your next surprise comes when you get the Yaris out on the open road. The drive now feels far more refined and relaxed. The extra power from the new engine means that you no longer have to labour with the gears on a long incline. And this improved performance, together with changes to the suspension, means that the Yaris is now a far more entertaining drive all round. Coming in at just under 11 grand, the Yaris SR is a cracking little car, and it proves that small is definitely beautiful, but it's also rather desirable as well.
Join us after the break when Tony Zenka takes a look at the future of British car design.
Hi, I'm at Coventry City's football ground today, and I'm going to be meeting some of the hottest new talent around. But no, it's not footballers today, it's young British designers who've graduated from the renowned Coventry University transport course. So let's check it out.
We've had several preliminary visits from household name companies who have been to look at the students with their work in progress. Some of them are back here tonight to see how that work turned out.
Now then, how about this for an off-road vehicle? Now the chap responsible for this is a young designer called Jeremy.
Yeah, it's designed basically to travel the world, so it's designed to be the ultimate off-roader, to take a 3-man crew with this United Earth Foundation, which is similar to a well-funded Greenpeace organisation.
Oh yeah.
So it can't be a sort of freelander, it's got to be able to handle every terrain that you could possibly put it in, from water to the most extreme temperatures.
So what sort of features would this vehicle have?
It's got active suspension, all mod cons, it's got air conditioning, it's got jet drives to make it go through water. It's powered by a fuel cell. This is part of the because it's an environmental vehicle, I didn't want it to be polluting, so it's run by a fuel cell which runs on hydrogen, so that's a 0% pollutant, which is something I was trying to push on this project.
So it's a typical motor show, there's full of blokes in suits looking busy and important, and yet we've stumbled across this lovely looking French lady who's a vehicle designer. Hi Eileen.
Hello.
So how are you enjoying the show?
It just starts, but we will see. I'm quite excited to see what will happen, and it's nice to show really the work we've done during all the year. Okay. This was my first year after a degree in product. So
I believe you've had a placement with Citroen, yes?
Yes, only this summer, yes.
Okay. Could you explain this strange looking vehicle here and what its purpose is?
It's a tourism vehicle, and because why I did it, it's because, you know, now you see what happens, and when tourists go to the office tourism, the office always hire a car and espace or something like that, but it's not suitable for all the layout. You see, it doesn't go for all these people. And if you see, the most important thing was visibility. So if I was that's why there is so much glass, and I use LCD glass, you know, these panels on which you can have pictures and information to inform the city. Right, this looks familiar. Hi Tom.
Hello there.
Now I believe you're responsible for this vehicle. What's the inspiration behind it?
Well, there were two sort of themes going on. My research report was about new technology and especially automated highways, and I just took that a little bit further by thinking, how could I change the interior and exterior of a vehicle to sort of take the best opportunity of that technology. So the interior features seats which actually swivel in the front, and so four people can face each other, and it's a far more socially interactive sort of environment. The exterior, I went for more personalisation, whilst also looking at Audi design themes. Right. So trying to bring that into one project was quite a tricky task.
What was the feedback from Audi for this vehicle?
As yet, I haven't had any feedback, but hopefully by the end of the evening, maybe we should.
So basically, you're angling for a job with Audi, aren't you?
That would be very nice. that was one of the purposes of the project.
Well, you're definitely going about it the right way. Could you just explain to me about these highways that I mentioned? About these sensitive highways?
Well, basically, through my research, I've come to the conclusion, as of many other people, that automated highways are the future of road travel. Basically, vehicles travel very close together in a close convoy, and the vehicle's progress is controlled both by the road and by the vehicle's built-in computer systems, thus allowing the user to sit inside and do more, much whatever they want to, such as business meetings, reading, relaxing, and they're not responsible for the movement of the vehicle. So in a way, it's like a train. It's like a normal train, but where each user has their own personal space.
It's okay impressing the neighbours and your mum and dad and your colleagues. Oh, look at me, aren't I clever? This is my design. But the reality is, the people here are trying to get jobs. They're trying to secure a future. And what they're hoping to do is impress the big-time designers from the motor industry. Hang about, there he is.
I think there's a freshness without naivety. That's what I really like about this. There's a sophistication in some of this stuff which has opened my eyes, quite frankly. It's really good. It's very good indeed.
George Best, Michael Caine, Frank Sinatra, they've all got one thing in common. That's right, they're living legends, or they used to be. Talking about legends, here's Jerry McGovern.
Well, what does one say to that?
Hi Jerry, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
So what do you think of this new crop of British young designers?
I've noticed there are one or two very good people, and a couple of people that I've spoken to are coming from design in a slightly different perspective, which I think is very important.
Now here's a glimpse of the future. Wow, Andrew, what's all this about?
This is about risk-taking psychology and making people more aware of driving, exposing mechanical and structural elements of the vehicle, so you get greater sensations of actually driving the car. It's certain elements like sitting low, certain elements you actually already have in sports vehicles at the moment. This is more of a focus-size vehicle.
How does this fit in with the risk psychology that you mentioned?
It's about making people more aware of their driving and the risks that are involved in driving, something that's quite often overlooked when we take a vehicle out on the road. So all the elements of the design actually influence the driver, so they're more aware of the environment they're in.
How do you fancy one of these parts on your driveway? I'm not sure myself. Let's meet Chris, who designed this vehicle. Hi Chris.
Hi, you alright?
What's the thinking behind this?
It's taking on the role of a Japanese urban environment to create a vehicle where it becomes part of this urban environment. So a chaotic form in a chaotic environment, you can cancel it out and create anonymity.
And is that very much the sort of culture over there?
I don't know culture. The actual vehicle is based on the philosophies and psychologies surrounding Japanese design and the culture itself. So it's taking those philosophies and psychologies to the extreme, and applying it to this vehicle.
We've been looking at all these funky exteriors for the future of vehicle design, but what are the interiors going to look like? Well, this chap here, David, he might have the answer.
This is a vehicle for the ever-increasing population of people using their vehicle as a mobile workplace and as an office. So what I decided to do was, because standard cars aren't adequate enough for vehicles, I decided to produce an interior which could accommodate the mobile worker and then convert back into a standard car easily. I've used the rear boot space here. I have this work surface at the back of the vehicle, which can actually slide down and back. So then the two rear seats can slide to the rear boot space of the vehicle, maximising interior space.
Right, I don't know about you, but I always like to see an old boy doing well for himself. And this is Steve Mattin. Hi, Steve.
Hi.
And Steve graduated from the Coventry Transport Design course 13 years ago. So what have you been up to, Steve, since you graduated?
Well, when I graduated, I went straight out to Mercedes, and I've been there ever since, working on various different vehicles. Probably the one best known to fame is the A-Class. I did the exterior design, as I did of the S-Class as well, so, you know, right from the early sketches, and had a lot of influence on that.
Fancy designs, interesting concepts, what's it all about? Well, the reality is, when these cars go into production, will they all get watered down and end up looking the same as the cars do today? I hope not.
There are reasons why cars may look similar to each other. Designers move around. They go from company to company. And while I'm sure they're effectively under oath not to reveal secrets and to behave discreetly, nevertheless, the melting pot, the parameters are not company to company. There are designers circulating in a sort of an international pool.
Okay, I've saved the best till last. How's this for the future of motoring? The next generation of Lotus, perhaps? This was designed by one of the graduates from Coventry University. British young car designers are not only cutting it in the world of design, they're actually highly sought after. And if this is the future, I'm looking forward to motoring. So it's goodbye from me.
Hot hatches! Not like they were in my day. Back then, you could take a corner so fast, you left all the tarmac on one side of the road. And acceleration, well, you had to work hard not to swallow your glasses with the G-force. I remember one lad disappeared altogether after leaving the lights too fast. Found him 3 weeks later, jammed down the back of the driver's seat. Proper cars they were. It's true, most of today's hot hatches wouldn't know a good country lane from a mother and child parking slot in the supermarket car park. And as for power, well, they're all bunged up and stifled, like Sam Fox trying to play jazz on a tuba stuffed full of wet newspaper. Big engines, but all bunged up. Most, that is, but not all. There are some notable exceptions, and this is one, the Citroen Saxo VTS. This is quite probably the very hottest of hot hatches. Hotter than an MP's cheeks after an hour of rough treatment with Madam Payne, followed by a lengthy camel trek, wearing sandpaper underpants. That's very, very hot. It possesses everything that's best about hot hatches, with none of the overweight lardiness so often found in the majority of today's lukewarm pretenders. The engine is just a 16-valve 1.6-litre unit, but it's as fiery and feisty as they come. Every last brake horsepower is directed to the front wheels and dedicated to grabbing the horizon by the scruff of the neck and yanking it towards you. And the size of the thing, it's compact, nimble, pointable, no unsightly paunch to get in the way of serious point-to-point A to B FUN fun. Whoa there! Of course, all this fun can't come cheap. The VTS will cost you £12,270. And as for the insurance, don't even ask, Vicar. Only the over 65s will be able to afford to insure it, and they're not going to want one. So then, for potential boy and girl racers, a hot hatch must remain a distant dream, the stuff of idle fantasy. Or must it? Because there may be an alternative here to the VTS, in the shape of the VTR. Radical, eh? It looks exactly like the VTS. So only those in the know will really, well, know. In fact, one of the few differences is in the engine. It's still 1.6 litre, but it has just 8 rather than 16 valves, so that means 90 rather than 120 brake horsepower. Oh, and it costs about 1,400 quid less to buy and a lot less to insure. But can we really settle for second best? There's no mistaking the decrease in power, but start to throw the VTR around and a strange thing happens. We begin to remember the torquey pleasures of an 8-valve engine. The power is available from lower down in the rev range, and there's none of that buzzy, scrabbly nonsense trying to keep it in a power band narrower than Edwina Curry's sense of humour. So there you have it, the VTR, in so many ways the more sensible buy of the two, if you're looking for a hot hatch. It'll cost you less to buy in the first instance, even if you spec it up to the same standard as the VTS. And in many circumstances, thanks to its extra mid-range 8-valve grunt, it'll actually be faster and certainly easier to drive than the VTS. And the insurance, you'll save a fortune on that, it'll cost you miles less. So it is definitely the more sensible hot hatch choice of the two. But hang on, we're talking about hot hatches. Who said anything about being sensible?
Join us next week on Motor Week, when Ginny Buckley ponders the talents of the Fiesta Z-Tech S and the Almira SET.